I sat across from Laura, watching her fingers tap the table. Just say it, I told her. You've been quiet all morning. She slid a folder toward me. Read it, she said. I opened it and froze. Divorce papers? I whispered. She nodded. I'm done, Ethan. I laughed once. This is a joke, right? She looked away. I've outgrown you. My chest tightened. Outgrown me? I asked. After 10 years? She crossed her arms. You're stuck. I want more. I said, more than what we built? She replied, more than you. I swallowed and asked, is there someone else? She didn't answer. I said, Laura. She sighed, yes. The word hit harder than a slap. Who? I asked. She met my eyes. Victor. I stood up. Your boss? She said calmly, he understands ambition. I laughed again, shaking. So you cheated. She corrected me. I chose better. I said, when? She replied, for months. I gripped the chair. Every time you said late meeting? She nodded. You knew? I whispered. I suspected, she said. I waited. I asked, did I ever matter? She answered, you were safe. My throat burned. Safe? I said. I loved you. She said, love doesn't pay bills. I snapped, I paid for this house. She shrugged. Victor can give me more. I said, money? She said, power. I asked, was I ever enough? She paused. You stopped growing. I said, I worked for us. She replied, I worked for me. Silence filled the room. I heard my heart pounding. So that's it? I asked. You destroy us and walk away? She said, I'm asking nicely. I picked up the papers. You planned this, I said. She didn't deny it. I deserve happiness, she said. I laughed bitterly. And I deserve this? She said, you'll recover. I said, you're cruel. She replied, I'm honest. I signed nothing. I dropped the pen. I gave you everything, I said. She stood up. You gave what you could. I said, I would have given more. She said, too late. She walked to the door and added, please be gone by tonight. I stood alone, staring at the empty chair. 10 years, I whispered. I packed a bag. I passed wedding photos. Lies, I muttered. Outside the air felt cold. I called Daniel. She cheated, I said. He cursed. Come over, he told me. I said, not tonight. I hung up and sat in my car. How did I miss this? I asked myself. My hands shook. I drove nowhere. I parked and cried. My phone buzzed again. Laura texted, make this easy. I typed, was any of it real? She replied, it was real then. I asked, did you ever love me? She answered, I cared. I threw the phone. Cared, I repeated. I heard her heels upstairs. You're packing? I shouted. She said, I'm staying with Victor. I laughed. So fast? She replied, I'm not waiting anymore. I asked, what about vows? She said, vows change. I said, people don't forget. She paused. They move on. She came downstairs with a suitcase. You don't even look sad, I said. She answered, I cried already. I said, while cheating? She snapped, don't play victim. I said, I am the victim. She said, you're an obstacle. That word broke me. An obstacle? I whispered. She nodded. In my life. I stepped aside. Then go, I said. She hesitated. I didn't mean to hurt you. I replied, but you did. She left without another word. I locked the door and slid down. This is my fault, I told myself. I trusted love. I stared at the ring. You promised, I said aloud. The house echoed back silence. I lay there shaking, realizing my marriage ended before I knew the war started. I closed my eyes and whispered, I won't survive this. My heart argued back. You will. I didn't believe it. I only knew the man I was died tonight. Whatever woke up tomorrow would never trust the same way again. I stayed on the floor until sunrise, counting breaths, listening to memories fade, understanding love can end quietly, leaving only shock, shame, and unbearable silence behind. Forever. I stood outside the glass building and said, "So this is how it ends." Daniel came beside me and asked, "You okay?" I replied, "Do I look okay?" He sighed. Laura moved fast. I laughed. She was always fast. He said, "Your name is gone from the board." I asked, "Just like that?" He nodded. "Overnight." I whispered, "I built this place." Daniel said, "Everyone knows." I replied, "Knowing doesn't matter." People walked past us. I heard whispers. "That's him," someone said. I turned and asked, "Do you need something?" They looked away. Daniel said, "Ignore them." I answered, "I can't." He grabbed my arm. "Let's talk." I pulled free. "There's nothing left to say." He said, "You're blaming yourself." I snapped, "Because I trusted her." He said, "That wasn't weakness." I replied, "It feels like it." Victor's voice echoed behind me. "Still hanging around?" I turned. "Enjoying my failure?" He smirked. "Business is business." I said, "You slept with my wife." He shrugged. "She chose ambition." I asked, "Was it worth it?" He stepped closer. "She said you were replaceable." Laughter burst from his mouth. "And she was right." My fists clenched. Daniel said, "Walk away." I told Victor, "This isn't over." He laughed again. "It already is." Daniel pulled me aside. "Don't ruin yourself." I asked, "What's left to ruin?" He said, "Your future." I shook my head. "I don't see one." He said, "Come crash at my place." I answered, "I need to be alone." He hesitated. "Call me?" I didn't respond. He left. Night fell. I sat in my car and said, 10 years. The radio played our song. I shut it off. My phone buzzed. Laura texted, "The lawyers will handle it." I typed, "You took everything." She replied, "You'll survive." I laughed bitterly. "You planned this." She sent, "I planned my life." I threw the phone onto the seat. "So did I said aloud. At home I opened a bottle. "Just one," I promised. The glass shook in my hand. I drank and said, "Cheers to love." I stared at the wall and whispered, "How long did you lie?" No answer came. I drank again. Memories attacked me. "Smile," Laura had said at dinners. "Trust me," she had said at night. I slammed the glass down. I was blind. My phone rang. Daniel again. "Please answer," he said. I replied, "I'm fine." He said, "You sound drunk." I said, "I earned it." He said, "Don't do this." I replied, "It's already done." Silence followed. He said quietly, "I'm here." I hung up. The storm outside grew louder. I grabbed my coat and keys. "Anywhere but here," I said. Rain hit my face as I reached the bridge. Cars rushed past. I leaned on the railing. "Is this it?" I asked myself. Thunder answered. I closed my eyes. "If I jump," I whispered, "would it stop?" The rain soaked me. I stared down and asked, "Is my life already over?" I heard a voice behind me. "Sir, you can't stand there." I said, "I'm not hurting anyone." He replied, "It's dangerous." I asked, "Isn't everything?" He paused. "Rough night?" I laughed. "Rough life." He said, "Loss does that." I whispered, "I don't want to die." He answered, "Then step back." I did. Rain slowed. I stayed breathing. I gripped the rail and said, "I lost my company." He listened. "My wife?" Silence followed. I said, "She chose my boss." He replied, "People make choices." I snapped, "And others pay." He said, "You're still here." I laughed weakly. "Barely." He said, "Barely counts." I asked, "What do I do now?" He said, Survive tonight. I nodded. Just tonight. He stepped away. I stayed, watching water crash below. My phone buzzed again. Laura wrote, "Sign tomorrow." I typed, "I won't disappear." No reply came. I put the phone away. I whispered, "I built something once." Wind answered, "I can build again." I stepped back from the edge. "Not tonight," I told the dark. "I'm not done yet." I walked off the bridge soaked, empty, angry, and alive, carrying loss with every step, unsure of tomorrow, but choosing to face it instead of falling. I crossed the street slowly. Cars splashed water. My hands shook. I said, "One breath at a time." No one answered. The city kept moving. I followed it, broken, bitter, but breathing. Knowing something inside me refused to quit tonight. I walked forward, not healed, not hopeful, just unwilling to vanish yet, alive. I didn't remember falling. I remembered cold, then silence. I opened my eyes and said, "Am I alive?" Sunlight hit my face. My phone buzzed beside me. "What?" I muttered. I grabbed it and froze. "This date is wrong," I whispered. My hands weren't shaking. My chest didn't hurt. I sat up fast. "No pain?" I asked myself. I swung my legs off the bed. "This isn't possible." My voice sounded younger. I rushed to the mirror and stared. "That's me," I said. "But younger." My hair was thicker. My eyes weren't tired. Panic hit hard. "I died," I said. "I remember dying." I backed away and said, "Think." Memories rushed in. The bridge, the rain, Laura's text. "Sign tomorrow." I pressed my head. I didn't sign. I checked the phone again. 10 years ago, I whispered. My breath sped up. This is before everything. I laughed, then stopped. Or I'm insane. I slapped my cheek. Ow! I stared again. This is real. My phone buzzed again. Laura's name flashed. I dropped it. "No," I said. "Not yet." I picked it up slowly. The message read, "Don't forget dinner tonight," I scoffed. "Dinner," I repeated, "before betrayal." I sat on the bed and said, "So this is a second chance." My heart pounded. "Why me?" I asked the empty room. Silence answered. I whispered, "I won't waste it." I stood and paced. "I remember everything." My voice shook. Every lie. I looked at my hands. These built the company. I clenched them. And these trusted the wrong person. I breathed deep. Not again. I heard my own voice inside. "You know how it ends." I replied aloud, "Then I'll change it." The phone buzzed again. Laura called. I stared at the screen. "Answer," I told myself. I picked up. "Ethan?" she said sweetly. I replied, "I'm here." She laughed. "You sound strange." I said, "Long night." She said, "Work again?" I answered, "Always." She said, "You worry too much." I almost laughed. "Do I?" I asked. She said, "Relax, I'll be late." I said, "Meeting?" She replied, "Something like that." I closed my eyes. "With Victor," I thought. I said calmly, "Drive safe." She paused. "I love you." I whispered, "I know." The call ended. I stared at the phone. "You lied easily," I said. My chest burned, but anger replaced pain. I trusted blindly. I shook my head. "Never again." I opened my contacts. Laura's name stared back. "This time," I whispered, "I choose myself." My finger hovered. Memories flashed. Her smile, her voice, the papers, the bridge. "Delete," I said firmly. The screen cleared. I exhaled. One step. I checked messages, emails, news. "The company is still mine," I said. Relief washed over me. "I can stop this." I laughed softly, "or I can watch." I walked to the window. "Fate gave me eyes," I said. "I'll use them." My phone buzzed again. Daniel texted, "Jim later?" I smiled. "He's still here," I said. I replied, yes. My reflection smiled back. I'm not broken yet, I told myself. I sat down and whispered, I died once. My voice stayed steady. I won't beg again. I stood taller. I won't chase. I looked at the mirror again. They won't recognize me. My heart beat strong. Not this time. I grabbed my keys. I know every move now. I paused and laughed. Checkmate, I said softly. Before leaving, I looked at the phone one last time. Laura Cole, I whispered, then shook my head. Just Laura. I smiled. This time, I won't be weak. Sunlight felt warm. For the first time in years, my chest felt light. I walked out knowing I had already survived death. Everything else felt easy compared to that. I stepped forward, alive twice, aware, calm, and smiling, carrying secrets only I remembered, ready to rewrite every ending that once destroyed me, starting today. I poured coffee and said, "You're late again." Laura smiled. "Meetings don't wait." I nodded. Neither does trust, I thought. She kissed my cheek. "You're quiet," she said. I replied, "Just tired." She checked her phone. "I'll be late tonight." I asked, "Dinner?" She shook her head. "Work." I smiled. "Of course." Inside, I counted lies. "How many now?" I asked myself. At breakfast, she laughed. "You should aim higher." I asked, "Higher than what?" She said, "Than being comfortable." I replied, "Comfort built our life?" She shrugged. "Comfort kills growth." I watched her eyes. "Power excites you," I said. She smirked. "Ambition does." I nodded. "I understand now." She didn't hear that part. At the office, Victor walked in. "Ethan," he said loudly. "Good to see you." I shook his hand. "Likewise." He leaned close. "Laura speaks highly of you." I smiled. "She always has." He laughed. "Supportive husbands are rare." I answered, "So are loyal ones." His eyes narrowed. "You're funny." I replied, "You'll learn." He walked away confident. I watched. "Same arrogance," I whispered. Daniel called. "Lunch?" he asked. I said, "Yes." He looked at me and said, "You're different." I asked, "Better or worse?" He smiled, sharper. I said, "I stopped ignoring patterns." He leaned in. "You trust me now?" I nodded. "I should have before." He said, "What's the plan?" I replied, "I watch." He frowned. "That's it?" I smiled. "For now." At home, Laura asked, "Why are you smiling?" I said, "Thinking." She rolled her eyes. "About work?" I answered, "About control." She laughed. "You sound ambitious." I replied, "I'm learning." She said, "From who?" I said, "From mistakes." She changed the subject. "I might travel soon." I asked, "With Victor?" She paused. "You're paranoid." I smiled. "Am I?" That night I opened accounts quietly. "Diversify," I said. Daniel texted, "Done." I replied, "Good." Laura walked in. "What are you doing?" she asked. I said, "Planning." She laughed. "Since when?" I replied, "Since I woke up." She smirked. "You won't beat them." I looked at her. "I don't need to." She asked, "Then what?" I said, "Outlast." She waved it off. "Dreamer." Days passed. Laura talked louder on calls. "He'll agree," she said once. I pretended not to hear. Victor visited more. "Still here?" he joked. I replied, "Always." He smiled. "Good." I nodded. "For me." Daniel whispered, "You sure about this?" I said, "Certain." He said, "You're calm," I replied, "because I know." One evening, Laura said, "I'm meeting Victor." I asked, "At the office?" She hesitated. "Hotel lounge." I smiled. "Fancy?" She snapped, "Don't start." I said, I won't." She grabbed her coat. "I'll be late." I nodded. "I know." She paused. "What does that mean?" I said, "Nothing." She left uneasy. I followed quietly, heart steady. I stood near the lounge entrance. I heard her voice. "Soon," she said. Victor laughed. "When?" She replied, "When the time is right." He said, "What about Ethan?" She scoffed. "He's convenient." I clenched my fist. She continued, "He won't see it coming." Victor said, "Good." I whispered, "Neither will you." I stepped back into the shadows. "That's the moment," I told myself, "the line you crossed." My phone buzzed. Daniel texted, "Everything okay?" I typed, "Perfect." I watched them laugh. "I'm ahead now," I said quietly. "And you don't even know the game has changed." I walked away smiling, listening to betrayal spoken clearly, calmly, without shame, knowing patience was my greatest weapon. And tonight confirmed everything I already knew. I sat at my desk and said, "No distractions today." Daniel leaned over. "You're obsessed." I replied, "Focused is different." He shrugged. "Fair enough." I typed numbers, checked accounts, analyzed emails. Every line I reviewed whispered, "Control is mine now." Maya called. "Lunch?" I asked. "Really?" She laughed. "Yes, really." I said, "I don't have time." She teased. "Then make time." I smiled. "Fine, you win." At the cafe, she said, "You're tense." I replied, "I have reasons." She nodded. "Explain them to me." I hesitated. "It's complicated." She said, "Complicated makes growth." I laughed. "I think you just like challenges." She grinned. "Maybe I do." Back in the office, my father, Richard, appeared. "I hear you've been busy," he said. I replied, "Learning fast." He said, "I'm proud." I froze. "You are?" He nodded. "You've become someone who can't be pushed around." I said, "Thanks." Inside, I whispered, "Finally." Laura stormed in later. "I need results," she demanded. I asked, "Which ones?" She said, "Why? More revenue, more connections." I nodded. "And Victor?" She smirked. "He helps." I said calmly, "Of course." She glanced at me. "Are you even listening?" I replied, "Every word." She scoffed. "Good." Victor arrived minutes later. "Everything's on schedule," he said. I smiled. "Perfect." He leaned close. "Laura's ready to make a move." I said, "Let her." He asked, "You're not worried?" I shook my head. "Worried is for yesterday." He frowned. "You're calm." I answered, "Because I see the pieces." At night, I documented every call. "Every betrayal counts," I muttered. Daniel asked, "Are you sure this is healthy?" I said, "It's necessary." He said, "You're not the same man she remembers." I nodded. "Exactly." He smiled. "Good." I added, "She'll learn that soon enough." Maya called again. "You missed dinner." I replied, "I was working." She said, "You work too hard." I laughed. "It's a different kind of work now." She said, "I like seeing you grow." I whispered, "Thanks." That night I stayed late, analyzing contracts, transfers, and stock reports. Every number reassured me. Laura texted, "We need more influence." I typed, "Not today." She replied, "Are you ignoring me?" I said, "I'm planning." She paused, then wrote, "You'll regret it." I smiled. "Regret is yours to earn." Victor called. "She's impatient." I said, "Let her be." He asked, "You trust yourself?" I replied, "I've never trusted more." He laughed nervously. "Bold." I said calmly, "It's necessary." Daniel texted, "Any updates?" I typed, "Everything's aligned." He asked, "Even Laura?" I replied, "Especially Laura." He sent a thumbs up. I leaned back and whispered, "Every move she makes is predictable." The next morning, Laura demanded a meeting. "You promised growth," she said. I asked, "I did?" She said, "Yes, my role, my control." I smiled. "Your role is what I allow it to be." She froze. Victor looked concerned. I said softly, "Keep pushing. Documenting everything helps me." Laura's jaw tightened. I watched her leave the room, muttering about ambition. I whispered, "Every betrayal, every demand, every lie. It's proof." Maya called again. "You sound different," she said. I replied, "I finally am." She laughed. "About time." That evening, I checked my portfolio. The final transfer cleared. I stared at the confirmation. "I own it all," I whispered. My chest tightened. The controlling shares, every piece she thought was hers. Daniel called. "Congratulations," he said. I replied, "Thanks." I smiled alone. This time I am untouchable, and she won't see it coming. I leaned back in my chair, thinking of Laura's fury, Victor's arrogance, and every tiny mistake they made. "Everything they built," I muttered, "now belongs to me." I looked at the city lights outside and whispered, "I've become someone she can't control." I entered the boardroom and muttered, "This is it." The room smelled of polished wood and fake confidence. Laura walked in, Victor at her side. She smiled. "I'm ready to lead," she announced. I said quietly, "Bold words." Daniel whispered, "Stay calm." I nodded. "I've rehearsed everything." Laura spread her hands. "The company will be mine." I asked, "Your plan includes him?" She looked at Victor. "Of course." I said, "Predictable." Victor smirked. "You're late, Ethan." I replied, "I'm right on time." The board shuffled papers nervously. I smiled. Laura leaned on the table. "Everything is in place," I said. "Not quite." She raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" I tapped my briefcase. "I think you'll want to see this." I opened it and laid out documents. Emails, transfers, contracts, secret accounts. "Everything," I whispered. The room fell silent. Laura's eyes widened. "Where? How?" I said calmly. "You underestimated me." Victor stepped forward. "And that's private," I asked. "Illegal too?" The board exchanged looks. Murmurs grew. Daniel whispered, "They're trapped." I nodded. "Perfectly trapped." Laura's face turned pale. "Ethan, stop this!" I leaned closer. "It's already done." She gasped. "You can't," I interrupted. "Watch closely." I revealed proof of her affair with Victor, all the secret deals, every document she thought hidden. Victor's smirk faded. "This isn't real," he muttered. I replied, "Reality is inconvenient, isn't it?" The chairman stood. "Board vote is unanimous," he said. "Laura Cole and Victor Adams are removed immediately." I said, "Security." 2 guards entered. Laura screamed, "You can't." I whispered, "I already did." She ran toward me. "Ethan, how did you?" I leaned close. "You taught me," I said softly. She froze. Victor tried to yell, but the board ignored him. Daniel said, "They're gone." I nodded, watching security escort them out. Laura's scream echoed down the hall. "Ethan, this isn't fair," I whispered under my breath. "Fair? You never taught me that." The boardroom quieted. I said, "Let's begin." The chairman nodded. "Mr. Cole, you're officially CEO." I straightened. "Thank you," I said. Inside, I smiled. Every step was predictable, and every betrayal became proof. Laura's voice rang faintly from the hall. "You'll regret this," I replied aloud. "Regret is your specialty." Daniel leaned in. "You did it." I said, "We did it." He laughed quietly. "We?" I smiled. "You stayed, you believed. That's enough." I walked to the head of the table. "Today marks a new chapter," I said. The board nodded. I glanced at every face. "I see every angle now," I whispered. "No one controls me again." Daniel said, "You're calm." I replied, "I've been patient." Laura's footsteps faded. Victor's threats silenced. I tapped the documents. Every move documented, every betrayal recorded. Daniel asked, and she? I smiled. Learning the hard way. He laughed softly. I said, no mercy is necessary when justice speaks. I leaned back. CEO, I muttered. The title tasted like victory, not loud, not proud, just mine. Every whisper, every hidden call, every lie she thought invisible was now evidence of my rise. Daniel said, what's next? I replied, everything I missed the first time. I looked at the empty boardroom. Laura, Victor, you made me strong. You made me ready. And now, I whispered, I lead. My chest swelled. Not with anger, not with hate, but with control, finally mine. The room felt different, alive. I smiled. This time, I decide the ending. The boardroom smelled the same, but this time I felt power instead of fear. Laura walked in, eyes wide, voice trembling. Ethan, please, let's talk, she said. I sat quietly. Talk? I asked. About what? She stepped closer. About us. About the company. I shook my head. There's nothing left to talk about. Her hands shook. I love you. I made a mistake, I said calmly. Love doesn't undo betrayal. She gasped. Ethan, please, I need you. I looked around. The board members avoided my eyes, some whispering. I said softly, watch closely. Victor's name came up. She whispered, it was his idea. I asked, really? She nodded frantically. He promised, he said it was necessary. I leaned back. And you agreed. She broke down. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I said quietly, scared doesn't excuse stealing, lying, or plotting. I stood and handed her a folder. She looked at me, hope flashing. Ethan, what is this? I said. Your future. Ended. Her hands trembled. Termination? She asked. I nodded. Effective immediately. She dropped her head. You can't do this. I replied, I can. I already did. She looked at the board, desperation in her eyes. You can't fire me in front of them. I said, why not? They saw every betrayal, every secret. You taught me well. She sobbed. I love you, I whispered. Love isn't relevant here. Maya stood beside me quietly, calm as ever. I said softly, support doesn't scream. It stays steady. Laura's knees buckled. Ethan, please. I shook my head. No, this is final. Victor's arrest flashed in my mind. You'll have no allies, no influence. She stared at me. How did you? I said. I learned from you. Her voice cracked. I need my life back. I replied. Life isn't yours anymore. You sold it. Daniel watched quietly, nodding. I whispered, everything documented, every misstep clear. Justice is quiet, not loud. She gasped. This isn't fair. I said, fair? You never taught me that word. Laura reached for me. Ethan, don't. I stepped aside. Step back. You crossed every line. Her hands dropped. I can't believe this, I said softly. Believe it now. She looked at the board. Their faces were calm, aware. You see what betrayal earns, I said. She swallowed hard. Victor's name floated again. He'll save me, she whispered. I smiled slightly. Not anymore. The security team appeared days later. Victor was arrested. I watched the news silently. Laura lost her status, money, pride. I muttered, every action has a consequence. Maya touched my shoulder. Are you okay? I nodded. Quiet is stronger than noise. She smiled. You didn't just take revenge. You reclaimed yourself. I said softly, and learned patience pays better than fury. Laura leaned against the hallway wall. Tears streaked her face. She whispered, Ethan, why? I looked at her without a word. My steps were steady. I walked past her feeling nothing. She collapsed completely, sobbing. I didn't turn back. Daniel whispered, "It's over." I replied, "It was never loud. Quiet and final is better." I glanced at Maya, then at the empty boardroom. "This is the power of patience," I said softly. The hallway was silent except for her cries. I left it behind, knowing this time justice didn't need noise. It only needed truth. I sat in my office, the city lights glowing faintly through the blinds. My hand held the old wedding ring, the metal cold against my skin. I whispered, "You meant something once?" Daniel knocked softly. "Still thinking about her?" I shook my head. "No, I'm thinking about me." Maya's voice came through the phone. "Dinner tonight?" I said. "Not hungry. I have other plans." She laughed softly. "Plans?" I replied. "To finish this chapter." She smiled. "Good. You've earned it." I looked at the ring again. Memories flashed. Laura laughing, her words, the betrayals. I said quietly, "It's just metal now." Daniel asked, "Throwing it away?" I nodded. "Yes." I dropped it into the trash. Clink. Final. I whispered, "No hatred, just freedom." Laura's voice echoed in my mind. "Ethan, please?" I shook my head. "I don't care anymore." Daniel asked. "Nothing?" I replied. "Not a thing. Peace is better than rage." Maya texted, "Proud of you." I smiled. Finally, someone sees it. I stood and walked to the window. "This city," I murmured, "it's mine." The lights reflected in my eyes, alive, promising. I imagined every choice, every calculated step. Daniel said softly, "You really did it." I replied, "I survived. That's all that matters." The office felt empty. My footsteps echoed as I walked past the desks. "All these years," I whispered, "and now it's mine again." Maya called. "Are you coming or just talking to yourself?" I laughed. "Both." She said, "I'll wait." I opened the drawer, pulling files, checking accounts. Every number, every line confirmed what I knew. Control is regained, mistakes corrected. Daniel said, "You could stay and run things tonight." I shook my head. "No, I fought enough here." I paused at the elevator. "It's quiet now," I said. Daniel replied, "Finally." I nodded. "Quiet suits me better than chaos." I pressed the button. The doors closed. My reflection stared back, steady, calm, victorious. "I'm reborn," I whispered. "Not to destroy, but to live." The lobby lights glowed as I walked past security. "Going somewhere?" one guard asked. I smiled faintly. "Home, or wherever life takes me next." He nodded. "Fair enough." I muttered, "Life is mine again." Outside, the city breathed around me. Cars, neon lights, distant voices. It all felt new. Daniel said, "It's beautiful, isn't it?" I replied, "Yes. But it's mine because I chose it." Maya texted, "Safe?" I typed back, "Finally." I walked slowly, letting the wind hit my face. "I wasn't reborn to fight," I whispered. "I was reborn to survive. To be me." The ring was gone, the past behind me. Daniel said, "You're free." I smiled. "I am." The door to the office closed behind me with a soft click. My hand lingered on the handle. I took a deep breath. Everything I lost, everything I gained, it led here. Maya called again. "Are you coming?" I said, "Yes, and I'll be ready." I stepped fully into the night. City lights reflected in my eyes. The past was silent. My chest felt light. Every betrayal, every setback, every lesson, it all brought me here. Daniel said softly, "To new beginnings." I nodded. "To life I fought for." I kept walking. I didn't look back. I whispered, "This time I'm choosing myself. Finally, I'm free." The city stretched ahead, endless and bright. The past stayed behind the office door, closed forever.